Okay, this morning I'd like to do a little monologue on the disconnect between advances in vehicle design and features and highway and traffic system that's still mired in cloverism. I'm out here driving along on this empty rural highway here, which has a posted speed limit of 55 miles an hour and probably has had a posted speed limit of 55 miles an hour since 1975. But I'm driving along here in this 2015 Jeep. And I'm trundling along here at 64 miles an hour. The engine is barely turning a fast idle. It's running around 1800 RPMs, and chiefly the reason for that is this vehicle's got a 9-speed transmission. It's got a 272 horsepower V6, all of which is wonderful and glorious, but preposterous in the same way that sending a eunuch down to the Bunny Ranch or Hugh Hefner's house is pointless and stupid. You got all this power, you've got the advances of 30 or 40 years since the 70s. Speed limits, however, particularly on secondary roads, are still pretty much what they were back in 1975. So it's just kind of silly and wasteful and dumb. I mean, what are you going to do with a 272 horsepower V6? This engine is hardly working, and I'm already 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, hardly working. If we were all going to obey the law that Clovers had passed and imposed on us, really there's no need, to use their favorite term, for more than about 150 or so horsepower in a vehicle that can get up to around 50-55 miles an hour, maybe let's say 60, and comfortably maintain that without any signs of struggle. A vehicle like this, on the other hand, and this goes for almost any new or recent vintage car, even with the base engine, can effortlessly, without any signs of struggling, cruise for hours, well in excess of 70, 80, even 90 miles an hour. A lot of them, this vehicle, for example, with this V6, could trundle along for hours at 90 miles an hour and hardly be stressed. And of course, Clover will shriek like an estrogenated banshee about how unsafe that is. But let's put things in perspective. This vehicle, like almost any vehicle that you buy today, has four-wheel disc brakes and a stopping capability that's probably as good or better than the most elite, high-performance exotic cars, perhaps even race cars that were available in the 70s. Back in those days, cars typically had, if you were lucky, small front disc brakes, drum rear brakes. They certainly didn't have anti-lock. They certainly didn't have stability or traction control, all of which now are absolutely common across the spectrum. That pretty much any car, even the most humble economy car today, comes with those things. I think it's almost impossible to buy a new car that still has drum brakes in the back. Also, look at the way wheel and tire technology has changed over the last 30 years, 40 years. Back in the 70s, cars typically came with no more than a 15-inch wheel, a steel wheel, and they might have had a 225/70 tire, and that was a performance tire, believe it or not, back in the 70s. Whereas today, it's virtually impossible to find any car, and that includes the lowest economy cars, the most humble, least performance-minded economy cars that don't have at least a 16-inch wheel and at least a 60 series tire. And it's much more common, even on family-type cars, to find 17 and 18-inch wheels with tires that would have been considered high-performance tires 30 years ago. The contact patch is greater. The threshold of grip is probably 50%, if not more, greater than it was back in the 70s. So again, the point I'm trying to make is that the handling capabilities of almost any new car are so much higher than the cars of the 70s that driving at the speeds of the 70s is ludicrous. The speed limit should have been adjusted upward to reflect the advances in vehicle design and technology, even assuming no increase in the skill set of the typical driver. In other words, if you could safely drive a 1975 Chevy Caprice down this road at 55 miles an hour, it's a little bit ridiculous to be driving a 2014 vehicle, any vehicle, at the same speed, given all those advances in technology. So that's the rant for today. It's time to update our traffic laws, make them more sensible, more reasonable. Ideally, if I were the proverbial decider, laws would be based on harm caused rather than the cloveridic standard of the least common denominator based on hypothetical risk, based on the theoretical construct of what a clover might do in a given situation. I think that it's entirely reasonable if a good driver can drive down the road safely in control of his vehicle. The speed that he's traveling is largely irrelevant. The only irrelevant consideration should be whether a person actually gets into an accident or causes some tangible harm to persons or property, in which case, of course, that person should be held responsible. But there's something silly and, more than that, vicious, I think, in punishing people who've done nothing tangible, where there's no victim, who've simply violated some law or other laid down, usually by a clover, on the presupposition that they might have caused harm. I don't see how you can punish somebody for might. I think the only way to reasonably punish somebody is for actually did cause harm to someone. At any rate, that is it for this beautiful, cold, early October morning. I hope you'll leave your comments about this little discussion I've been having over at epautos.com. We look forward to hearing from you and hope you find things informative or at least interesting on the site. And if you have anything that you'd like to add, whatever that might be, pro or con, please do so, and we will catch up with you next time.